You know a story is a good one when there have been countless movies and TV shows created based on that story. Today we are going to be going back to the 19th century to what started it all. Hey guys, it's Bex. Welcome to another video. When I'm filming this, it is currently October 5th. I don't know, 4th or 5th. And that obviously means that it is officially spooky season. I love fall and I love fall reading. So today's a reading vlog. As you can see from the title, we are going to be reading 2 classics. And I haven't read very many classics at all, so I'm a little bit intimidated, especially because these are just not really in my comfort zone at all, but we are just going to see what I think of them. The first book we'll be reading in this video is Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is a vampire book, and it is, I really need to look up when these came out. Both of them are over a century old. This one is almost 400 pages. Fun! I feel like I don't fully know kind of the story of Dracula, even though I've watched different movies that are kind of adaptations of the story, but I don't know which one was, the most accurate to the book or anything like that. So I don't know. My husband I got married 6 days ago, so still not used to saying husband. My husband read this earlier this year. He got through it pretty good, and he isn't a huge fiction reader. I believe he enjoyed it, but it is really up his alley, so we'll see what I think of that one. And then the other one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which is shorter, thank goodness. This one is barely above 200 pages. I am going to start with Dracula. As I get into these books, I will tell you guys what they are about, but this one is about a vampire, and this one is about this guy that kind of brings someone back to life, and he becomes this creature. That's pretty much the gist of it. But yeah, we're gonna see what I think of these books for spooky season, and I'm super excited. I'm on page 4, but so far, my first thoughts about the writing and if it's super old school, not particularly, which is obviously very nice. It definitely reads a little bit different than today's writing, but not as bad as I would assume and have kind of heard other classics read. There is a lot of words on each page, and the margins are pretty small, if you can see that. And it looks like it is written in diary entries / letters. Alright guys, I have my first update on Dracula. I am making my way through pretty quickly, to be honest. I'm a third of the way through, on page 124, chapter 10. I definitely know more about this book, so I can tell you what it is about. Kind of the format of the book and how the story is told is pretty unique. I think I already said that it is mostly journal entries and letters. We have, I would say, 4 main characters. We have this guy, Jonathan. Is that his name? Yes, Jonathan Harker, who at the beginning of the book is going to be staying with Count Dracula in his castle kind of in the middle of nowhere. So the first couple chapters are him writing in his journal about his journey there and his stay there, and kind of him finding out that Count Dracula is not who he seems and he's trapped. Then it kind of switches to a totally different POV, I guess you could say, of a couple different people. We have this one girl named Mina. We have a girl named Lucy. Mina and Lucy are, I think they're just really good friends. I don't think they're related at all. And we learn that Mina is Jonathan's betrothed. He and her are kind of writing letters to each other a little bit. Then Lucy knows Mina. So they're all like interconnected, entwined in the story, but they're in different places kind of during the same timeline. And then we have this doctor who's taking care of this kind of mentally unstable or something patient named Renfield, and this doctor also knows Lucy and is entwined in that way. So yeah, everyone knows each other, and it's very detailed in the form that there's pretty much some sort of journal entry or letter for like every day. Yeah, I'm honestly really liking it, and it isn't as hard to read as I expected. I listened to a tiny bit of the audiobook yesterday when I was cleaning, but mostly I am just enjoying reading it physically. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. Hopefully I can finish it in a couple more days, and then we can move on to Frankenstein, and I will talk to you guys when I'm farther in. I don't feel like getting my tripod out right now, so sorry. But I just wanted to say that I'm on the last chapter of Dracula, page 381, and there's 399 pages in this book, so I have 18 pages left. On page 5. Can you see me? Hopefully you can see me. I swear sometimes I edit my videos and I'm like, you can see like half of my face in this clip. That's one of the problems with filming with my phone, is I can't see myself. Anyway, so far I have no idea what's going on. As I said, I'm on page 5. Letter 2. So it looks like instead of chapters, there's volumes, and then there's letters within the volumes. Let me look ahead a little bit. And then it goes to chapter 1. Okay, interesting. Also, I have to use my own bookmark, even though it comes with this one, because my husband is reading this book right now too. And he's on page 37, and I don't want to mess up his place in the book, so. It was really fun to read Dracula because he's read it, and our like reading tastes don't really align very much. The only books that we've both read are now Dracula and The Fellowship of the Ring, and I literally think that's it. Yeah, so just started this. Hopefully it's gonna read quickly, but I doubt it. It's only 207 pages. So like half the length of Dracula, which is really nice. But also, again, my husband has read Dracula and is reading this now, and he says that so far it's pretty slow. I'll talk about my thoughts on Dracula more at the end of this video, but there was times in the middle, I would say, of Dracula that got a little bit slow, but the beginning wasn't. So we'll see. I do think that I know the story of Frankenstein better than the story of Dracula, and I'm only going off of movies that I've seen about these books when I say that, by the way, so I don't know how accurate they are, but I guess we will see after I read them if they are. So that is my update, but not really an update, and I will see you guys later. Alright guys, it is a couple days later. I am back from my little weekend trip out of town, and I am halfway through this book, and I will say that it is pretty slow, and I hate using this word, but kind of boring. Definitely less engaging and exciting than Dracula was, and it literally just started kind of getting interesting at like page 85, which is probably like 40% of the way through the book. So, you know, not very much going on for the first 40 to 45%. I have also found myself confused a little bit, and I had to Google Frankenstein list of characters because I kept getting confused as to who was who and how like the main characters related to this lady and this guy. Are they just friends, or are they related? Are they romantically involved or not? Because the main character's name is Victor Frankenstein, and it's kind of confusing because the book starts off with multiple letters from this guy named Robert Walton, and he's writing to his sister, and he's like on this ship on his way to the North Pole, I believe, if I'm remembering right. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, like this is our main character, you know? But then, nope, it switches POVs from him to Victor Frankenstein. But I found that it wasn't super clear that that happened. There's literally like nowhere that tells you it switches, pretty much. Like you just have to use context clues, and apparently I didn't. So I was really confused because someone in the book called him Victor, and I was like, I thought his name was Robert. But no. And also, it's kind of confusing because Victor is married to his wife, whose name is Elizabeth. And in the beginning, when he's talking about like growing up and stuff, he mentions Elizabeth and that his family like adopted her kind of because they couldn't get pregnant, and he refers to her as his sister because they're like family but not blood related, you know. So he'd be referring to her as his sister, but then saying stuff like he's so beautiful and talking about kissing her and stuff, and I was just like, wait, but yeah, no, they're married, so not sure how I feel about that. But that, I guess, is just kind of more common in these times when this book was written, which I will correct myself on the screen if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the older book of the two that I'm reading in this video. I think Dracula was late 1800s, and this was like early to mid 1800s, so extremely old, and you can very much tell the writing is like hard but not to read. There's definitely words that I've been like, don't know what that means, so I have to look it up if I care enough, especially when this one character in the book is talking. He says a lot of, let me see if I can find an example, thee, thou, and thy. Literally in 3 sentences we have all 3 of those words. Stuff like that's definitely a little bit of a slower read because of the wording used and whatnot, but it seems like it's kind of picking up a little bit, so I am now kind of excited to read it. It's not even like the pacing, it's more like the story and how it's being told is super random, I guess. Like first you have that letter from the guy to his sister, first like 15 pages. Then you all of a sudden get into Victor Frankenstein's story and him creating this creature monster guy. After that, it's like 5 pages of that, maybe like 15. And then, oh, I don't know, like, did that actually happen? Because he doesn't talk about it again, really, for the next, like, 40 pages. Now we're back into that kind of storyline. So I was like, for those, like, 30 to 40 pages, I'm just like, what's going on? But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Hopefully we'll read more today, and I'll finish it in a couple days. And I'll let you guys know more thoughts, probably just when I am finished. Hey guys, I just finished Frankenstein, so I just wanted to talk about both of these books and my overall thoughts and opinions. First, we're gonna do Dracula because that's the first book I finished. So I would say that my favorite of the two books was Dracula. I was more interested the whole time. I was more engrossed in the story. I feel like I got more attached to the characters, which I mean is like double the length of Frankenstein, so kind of makes sense. Even though I liked it, I do think that there were parts that were dragged out and a little bit slow in the middle, and that it's just not my usual genre story. It's just not usually what I would pick up. One, because it's super old. It's a classic, so it's just hard for me to rate it. So you know what, I don't think I'm officially going to rate these actually, but you'll kind of get my, thoughts on them and the gist of kind of what I thought of them. First of all, I did look up these books' publication dates. So Dracula was the more recent one, and it was published in 1897, I think. And Frankenstein is the older of the two, published in 1817. Hopefully that's right. I'll put it on the screen. I keep forgetting. I keep looking up and I keep forgetting, but they're very old. Dracula follows this vampire named Count Dracula. The beginning of the story is this guy, Jonathan Harker, who is going to stay with Count Dracula because Count Dracula is like trying to buy land in England, and Jonathan Harker is kind of the go-between man between like his boss and Count Dracula to help him out. So he's going to Transylvania to stay with Count Dracula for I think what starts out as like 2 weeks, something like that, but then he ends up staying longer, and throughout his stay he just is seeing some odd things, and Count Dracula like never eats with him and he's never seen him eat. And like one day Jonathan discovers that he's basically trapped in this castle with Count Dracula. Meanwhile, you kind of are flipping around between POVs, and you are also following this doctor who ends up taking care of Jonathan's wife's, Mina's really good friend Lucy. So Lucy is really good friends with Mina, who is married to Jonathan. And this doctor, Dr. Seward, is taking care of Lucy because she isn't well. Throughout the book, they're basically just trying to bring down Count Dracula. And they like all come together, all the characters, and yeah, that's basically what this book is about. I was a lot less confused throughout this book than I was with Frankenstein. And I guess this book was just easier to understand and follow the storyline versus Frankenstein. I think I said in my one and only update on this book throughout reading it that I was pretty confused at the beginning. It definitely does come together in the end, I will say, and I think it was partly my fault. I think I was just I wasn't even skimming it like at all. But at the beginning, I was just like, I don't know why I'm reading this. Like, what's this got to to do with Frankenstein, the creature. You just don't really get where the beginning comes into play with the creature until way later in the book. At least I didn't, and I was confused. But I reread / skimmed like the first however many pages where it's Captain Walton's letters to his sister about his journey in like the North Pole, somewhere north, and he finds this man stranded on this ice cap melting, and he's like about to die, but they find him miraculously and bring him on board. And I'm not gonna spoil it, but that comes into play with the rest of the story. And then you move on to Victor Frankenstein's like POV kind of, and he's like explaining his life and growing up and then going to school, and when he decides that he wants to try to like create life that's already dead, and therefore he creates this creature. It was not a good decision because all of these things happen and he regrets it, but the creature his story is honestly super interesting, and I think that's really the main purpose of this book. It's not really about Victor Frankenstein creating this creature, which I was really surprised because if you've seen the movie with Robert De Niro, I honestly can't remember the name of it exactly because there's so many movies about Frankenstein. That movie goes way more into depth of the creation of the creature versus this like kind of just like skips over it like really nonchalantly, and you're like, wait, what? So I wasn't expecting that, but again, I don't think that's really the main focus of what the book is supposed to be about. I think it's more so about the creature and being super lonely and everyone being scared of him and him not knowing like what he is and where he is and why he's different from everyone. And it's honestly in parts kind of sad, his thoughts and feelings when he's talking in a decent chunk of the book, maybe, I don't know, 20 pages, something like that. He's talking and explaining like where he's been the last months, year, I don't even know the time frame, honestly. Yeah, it's really interesting hearing his thoughts and what he went through. So I liked it. However, I just think it was a little bit confusing / slow / short, and therefore you didn't really get super connected to the characters. But for it being 200 pages, that's like the size of a longer novella, I would say. It does a pretty good job. So yeah, overall, I'm honestly so happy that I read these finally. I've had this one for a while, and I think I got this one earlier this year. I knew I wanted to read them this time of the year with just being kind of spooky. This one I will say was a lot more spooky, but this one deals with like death and stuff too, and obviously being like an undead kind of creature fits in with the theme of reading spooky classics like this video was meant to be about. So yeah, I'm really glad I read these. I would recommend picking them up. I think getting to finally read and know where all of the movies / TV shows that we now have based on these books kind of came from and originated from is really interesting. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I had a fun time filming it and reading these books, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!